A comment in one of my previous videos suggested that I check out the Gunter Hill Corps of Engineers campground near Montgomery. So I decided to spend a little bit longer trip this time. I'm going to be staying here for 7 days. Now that's a bit long for me, especially in a full hookup campground like this, but overall it was something that I could do a couple of experiments. After getting the camper set up, I jumped on the bike and decided to take a tour of the campground. There are two loops in this campground. One's called the Katoma Loop, which is where I was staying. The other is called the Antioch Loop. The Katoma Loop is a little newer. It has full hookups. The Antioch has gravel roads, a little older, and I believe it has, I don't believe it has any sewer. It does have electric and water. Now, at the far end of the Katoma Loop, where I'm headed, there's a little trail, a little paved trail that goes out to a overlook. So I decided I would go out there and take a look at Katoma Creek. Now, Katoma Creek feeds into the Alabama River, and I was pretty interested in being able to get my kayak into the water here. Between the Katoma Loop and the main entrance, this stretch of road had several deer that lived in this area. It almost never failed as I rode my bike along this stretch that I would see one or more deer. Well, much to my surprise, just a couple of campsites down from where I was parked was another Oliver. This was Kent and Jody out of Lake City, Florida. And it was great to meet you guys. They are professional barbecue judges. Can you imagine? That night after dinner, I stepped outside and I was greeted by the strangest sound. I made a recording using my field recorder, and I'll play it here for you. So I'm standing in my campsite right outside my camper, and I'm recording the sounds that I hear. So I can hear the crickets, but more than anything else, I hear what seems like to be a racetrack or something like that. I don't know. The next day I explored on my bike, and it turns out it was a racetrack. This is the Montgomery Speedway. And I rode my bike out there, and there were no signs that said no trespassing. All the gates were open, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll go out there and I'll do a lap. So I managed to go out and ride a lap at the Montgomery Speedway on my bicycle. Well, obviously I didn't get permission to do this, and you should not do as I do. I think if I had asked, would have been denied. But regardless, now I can claim having raced a lap at Montgomery Speedway. Well, as I mentioned in the intro, part of the reason that I'm staying there for 7 days was an experiment to see if I could work effectively from the Oliver. And in general, I was able to. The AT&T coverage, there was 1 or 2 bars of LTE, which was good enough for what I needed to do. Now, audio conferences were not that great. People did complain that my voice was cutting out or a little bit stuttery at times, but otherwise it worked out pretty well. Today was a little bit cooler High was 90, but now it looks like there's another thunderstorm on its way. We're somewhere around in here, I guess, and this stuff is moving in this direction, so I guess we're going to be buckling down. The winds are starting to pick up a little bit, but I'm sure after the rain passes by it'll be nice and humid. I was going to take the kayak out into the creek here, but I don't know, with it weather the way it is, it may rain the rest of the afternoon. Not really sure. But the winds kicked up and clouds rolled in, and before long had rain, and my plans were foiled. But there's always tomorrow. Egret. There's some big water birds back in here. Now this is an easy way to get from the campground. You just have to kind of sneak through in between sites 5 and 6 in the Cahaba loop, or Katoma loop, sorry. And you will find a little trail that leads down to the creek from the website, from the campsite. Oh, I made him mad. Very angry. This is pretty shallow. This is like maybe the length of my paddle blade deep. Yeah, see this mud getting up off the bottom, scaring the fish or turtles or whatever is on the bottom. Now those look like cypress roots. It might be a... They looks like they've been gnawed. Maybe there's a beaver in this area. Don't really know. Yeah, I'm glad I came down here. It's not too hot after the rain we had today. I don't see any carp torpedoes. This is getting really shallow. This is about 6 inches maybe deep, so I'm gonna head back out into a little deeper water. I don't want to get run aground and have to step out of the boat to get myself loose. Now this is the boat launch. It's right on the other side of the campground where I put in the kayak. Boat launch is probably a mile by the road from right over there, so much easier access. These kind of intriguing little areas might not go anywhere. Yeah, kind of neat. Now this side of the campground is called the Antioch Loop over on this side, and then over here is the Katoma. The Antioch Loop has some steps. I rode my bike over there yesterday and I noticed that a couple of the campgrounds have these steps that lead from the campsite right down to the water. If you were paddling out here, that might be a great place to camp. Some sort of creature is living in that hole, I imagine. There were a couple of places on the creek that had this disused pipeline that crossed over, and there are walkways that walkways that go across that are in disrepair, and they're closed. You're not allowed to go out on them. As near as I can tell from my research, this old pipeline was actually carrying water from a nearby wastewater treatment plant out to the Alabama River. Now, this is probably, I would guess, used back in the 70s. So I can remember my dad telling me about Katoma Creek and how the water quality there was not something that you needed to be, you didn't need to be swimming in. Nowadays, it's not being used anymore, and the environmental impact of that kind of wastewater disposal is under a lot tighter control. It's hard to make out from the video, but there were birds' nests under the bridge, under the pipeline up there, that were, I guess, maybe starlings or some sort of bird that was making a mud nest. I'll show a picture here, a still picture that I took that I tried to improve the look of the nests. But if you know what kind of bird this is, please comment and let me know. Okay, let's go outside. Come on. Go ahead. Oh, it's about 8:30, and looks like everyone has all their fancy lights on in the campground. A lot of lights, and I can't, I've got my lights on my awning as well. But yeah, it's Thursday night, and I'm going to be leaving here on Saturday. So I thought I've got my thermocell out here. I've had it on for about 10 or 15 minutes to help clear the area of mosquitoes, and really seems to have worked. Not seeing any flying insects around here, which it was unusual. It's had quite a few, and they all seem to rush inside the moment you open the door. So, but yeah, Thursday. Part of this trip was an experiment with working from the Oliver, and part of it was I wanted to come check out this campground, which is highly rated, and I also wanted to be able to go out into the creek with my kayak, which I've done. come back over here now. So, you know, successes on all those fronts. You know, I've been here since Saturday, and I'm leaving on Saturday, so it's 7 nights of camping here, and I'm ready to go. Well, you know, I'm still planning on putting, you know, my kayak into the creek another time, tomorrow maybe. But you know, I've had my fill of this campground. I've learned a few things. I've learned that cell service is super important if I expect to be able to work remotely. I didn't really have trouble. I had basically one bar of LTE service from AT&T, and I didn't really have too much trouble working. My biggest problem was when I had meetings and where people were speaking and you know, had to talk in a meeting, and the bandwidth there was not quite good enough. I could mostly hear okay. The problem was when I would speak, people were telling me that it's like the first part of what I was saying was being cut off, and it's not that great. So I did order a WeBoost. It's called a WeBoost Destination RV. It's not meant to be used in motion. It's meant to be used at your destination. That's why they call it the destination. It comes with a 25-foot pole that I will mount somehow with bungees or some kind of way to the Oliver. The Oliver does have a satellite coaxial port on the outside, and it has that coax is pulled into the attic in the inside. So I think it's going to work. I can plug the coax from the WeBoost into the satellite port on the Oliver, and then plug the booster up in the attic, and then it'll have an internal antenna that sort of forwards the signal that it picks up from the external antenna. So that'll come in next week, and I'm thinking maybe, you know, that'll help a lot, and especially in marginal areas like this is. I guess another sort of aspect about this campground, it's very nice. It's very quiet and peaceful, clean, level. It's got all the things that you would want to have from a Corps of Engineers campground. Would have preferred a little bit better area for paddling. The creek is okay. It's very shallow, and it's very kind of a backwater off of the Alabama River. You know, this would be a great place to spend a couple of days, 3 days. For me, staying here a week it's a little long. Plus the weather has been not good. The high temperatures have really made it hard to get out at all. Especially towards the first of the week, it was pretty bad. But now, the later part of the week, it's been cooling off. It's been actually, this afternoon, I rode my bike around the campground, and it was really comfortable. So, yeah, I think if I were going to give it a star rating, I would say this is definitely 4 out of 5 stars. the things that you want to watch for. I think the Katoma site number 5, I think, is probably one of the better sites for me anyway, because it has that entrance, that little trail that goes right down to the creek. Very easy to get your kayak down. So that was a big plus for that. There aren't very many of those around. There are some over on the Antioch side that would be good for if you were trying to put a boat in the water. It's frustrating to me during the day for a couple of reasons. One, marginal cell signal when I have I'm trying to work is frustrating. And tomorrow I'll probably put the kayak in the creek. I also am going to break out my grill. I bought a steak that I want to grill out. But then after that, then Saturday morning we'll get up and I'll spend some time cleaning. I've tried to continually clean here while if I make a mess, I clean it up and try and keep things going. So keep that going, and Saturday I'll give it a final once over. We'll hit the road and head back to Birmingham. Well, since I've been here at Gunter Hill, I have once before this week gone out on my kayak, and this is Friday. This is the last night that I'm going to be spending here, and I decided, I need to go back out and go on the kayak one more time. So this is how I record when I'm paddling on the kayak with my GoPro on my head. But of course, since I'm working here all day, then at the end of the day, when I'm off work and I'm able to do things, of course that's when it's going to rain. And not only did it just dump down quite a bit of rain, it's sort of slacked up right now, but I also just received a warning for a severe thunderstorm. So I don't know, humid and wet. So, I'm not giving up hope. I still would like to be able to do a little bit of kayaking and maybe cook out a little bit later on. But if not, then, it is what it is. We'll make the best of it. So one of the features that I really like about the Oliver is this low pressure propane hookup. So underneath here, and also in the back, there are low pressure propane after the regulator. So it pulls propane from the regular propane tanks. And I bought this hose, this low pressure hose on Amazon. And it has a quick connect on this end, and it screws into this grill. So I don't have to carry a separate propane source for the grill. All I have to do is use this hose, and I can pull propane directly from the Oliver. Another option is if you have a something like a fire pit, or a portable propane fire pit. There's another connection in the back, so you can actually run both of them and use the propane that's on board. So by this point, I had decided there was going to be no kayaking today. White caps on the creek are not a good sign, and those clouds are really looking ominous. Oh, here comes the rain. My little jaunt down this trail that ran alongside the creek was probably a bad idea, because now the rain is coming. At this point, I'm going to abandon the kayak and just make a beeline back for the truck. I'll go back and get the kayak later. After about 10 minutes of sitting in the truck waiting for the rain to stop, I finally was able to go back and pick up the kayak and head back to the camper. Marked the end of my attempts to kayak again while I was at Gunter Hill. Well, that brought a close to my week at the Gunter Hill campground. If you're near the Montgomery area, I would definitely recommend checking it out. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content.